This up. Okay, so let me just start by saying, and then I'm going to turn it over to you, that w- there were two things that had happened today that I wasn't paying attention to, but they certainly coincided. Normally, this is the time that I do the regular podcasts, but seeing how I hadn't done them for a few weeks, I knew that people may not have expected it. It's still there, and my point is somebody else may walk in on this in a moment because the Zoom link is one and the same.
That's great.
Now, having said all that for our audience, Dave and I had talked about doing this for a while at length. I got to spend quality time with him in Hermosa Beach, where the two of us we knew we connected when we saw each other in Shasta last year. And it seemed like it's been lots longer than that you and I have been communicating. But having said that, we hadn't really had a chance to share our own experiences with another because we've always been in a crowd that had their own demands upon what they wanted to know from us. So that was cool. Day one, great. Dave got the dump on inner earth and all the things that I'm connected to. And then for 2 days, Dave blew me away with things that might looking at who Dave was when he was younger and the things that he was doing certainly didn't lead him to this place with this kind of knowledge dump, should we say, and all of the associated abilities and things that he's been gifted since then. It's time for some of that stuff to be made public, and Dave has chosen to do that. It took a while for him to come up with the format on how that was going to be done. Some thinking as to how to present it, because what I saw, I got to see unobstructed over 2 days with illustrations and notes that certainly made the story complete for me. And I got to understand the process you went through, not just heard the story. Holy crap.
Yeah.
So extraordinary people come across my path all the time. And I want other people to know who they are. People have heard you, and every time they hear Dave, oh, I love Dave. I'd love to spend time with Dave. Yes, you would. So here is going to be our opportunity. This was meant to be a teaser, so it may only go 20 or 25 minutes long, depending on how Dave wants to frame this in. The intent is to set this up for 4 more sessions to come that Dave will go into in great detail for topics that it's really important for all of us to know, and information that he's been gifted. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dave, and you can kind of share what it is that you've got in mind. And Thank you in advance.
Thanks, Lowell. Always a pleasure to see you and to be with your community. Like I've said in the past, you guys are all pretty astute people, and I always enjoy reading your comments afterwards. I actually hope some other people join in. That way there's some interaction if anyone has any questions. What I shared with Lowell was about 60 pages of drawings and some photos of my initial experience when I was taken away. And what happened was, in the process of them downloading etiquette and behavioral things to me, what they also did was they downloaded a whole bunch of mathematics, because they knew I was dying to know everything that was going on around me. And when you're with somebody really important, you try to behave in a way, doesn't matter what your age or what your education is, you try and behave in a way to show some respect to that person should they decide to do all the communicating. So I spent a lot of time being quiet while they spoke to me. And they knew, they could see inside of my head, they could see all of my thoughts as I was having them, that I was really interested in the processes that were occurring all around me. That included the construction of the interstellar conveyance that they took me on, how it works, how many different species were on that craft, where was my place going to be for the trip, where were we going, how fast would we be getting there, what protects the ship, were we folding space, were we doing a quantum sort of warp drive, were we going faster than light? As it turns out, we were going faster than light, but through a conduit. And space is full of conduits which can be activated. They're activated with lots of different ways, depending upon the type of conduit that is that you're approaching in a craft. We don't know about any of this stuff. This isn't something that NASA researches or that they talk about at MIT. But because of my background in astrophysics and quantum mechanics, I realized that mankind right now is so stuck on understanding particles and subatomic particles and new forms of energy. The people that are in all of the nation's think tanks right now are just trying to come up with energy sources that are clean, that will be renewable, whatever that means. And it's based our energy needs and our energy scope of understanding subatomic particles and quantum mechanics is based on our evolutionary stage. So we don't get to do the things that they get to do until we've existed for another 100,000 or 200,000 or 500,000 years. Pardon me, I have a little sinus infection from all the pollen, so I'm a little nasally. So we can't just believe in what we're providing for ourselves. There are some exotic technologies that just one small aspect of that exotic technology takes a long time to talk about. What happened to me was I had an extremely complex, very detail-oriented experience where I was allowed to remain awake and allowed to participate and join them in the experience of space travel, intergalactic travel from Earth to the Taurus system. In that all-encompassing event, it took me a year when I got back just to draw out all of the different aspects of the trip. I drew the ships, I drew the people or the entities that I met, I drew pictures of the chair that I was seated in. I wrote out all sorts of equations that they gave me that I was able to actually look up later and find similar equations here on Earth that we had already started to work on. And this was before I went back to university and studied physics. This was all new technology, all new language to me. So when I was sitting down with Lowell, I was able to show him pictures of the ship, introduce him to the different species or people that I was introduced to, what they meant to me at the time, what they were doing for me. A lot of it was sort of coddling me, holding my hand and talking to me, because there's this huge wave of not only shock that happens when you're around a completely different species, a sentient species, because I never thought that we were the only sentient species besides dolphin and whale and yeti and manatee and the rest of the elephants and the amazing creatures on Earth that are all sentient, that all have their own level of intelligence, some of them much higher than humans. But when I was in situ with them, in the process of being taken on board the craft and being seated, I drew pictures or painted pictures of the window, what I was seeing outside the window, what it looked like to have this huge armada of ships flying through this big energy beam, and then finally arriving at the Taurus system, where our whole fleet of ships the velocity was arrested by a black hole that was made by them, and it was at the right distance, the right Lagrange point, so that nothing in the solar system where the planet Brokali was would be in danger or harm's way from the black hole. But the black hole was just far enough away from the exiting point of this tunnel that we went through where it arrested the velocity. The first stage of velocity that we hit was 68,449 kilometers per second. At that stage, something called an Orlon, AURLON, is formed, and it's a bow shock wave or a bubble that naturally occurs on the outside of the ship. This is what protects the ship from neutrinos, particles, micrometeorites, because in mankind's hypothesis about faster than light or near light travel, many physicists and quantum physicists will tell you that if you're traveling at half the speed of light, which is 181,000 miles per second, which is roughly the speed of a lightning strike, if you're traveling at that speed through space in a man-made stellar conveyance, that if you get hit just by a molecule-sized particle, that it'll absolutely destroy the ship. And of course, that's completely untrue. What mankind doesn't realize is that these naturally forming barriers occur around your ship as you hit that certain speed. And they have the technology to get right up to that speed. And that's through a navigation system called telemetry. And they showed me how to build the spectroscopy reading machine. It's a bit like a Michelson interferometer that counts the photons on a crystal model of the solar system. And then it does what's called prescriptive telemetry. And it shows you far in advance the electromagnetic and the gravitational field of the ship as you're flying from solar system to different aspects or parts of the galaxy. Once you get out of this quadrant of the galaxy, you start going into other places like towards Vega or Cygnus or Taurus or the Pleiades. It depends on wherever they want to go. But they have the technology to initiate that speed. And since I saw Lowell, which was 2 weeks ago, I got a download about a type of hyperdrive that's run on the emission of charged particles in a loop. It looks like a coiled spring behind the ship. And every microsecond, a charged particle is released. And it's a quantum drive that allows the ship to maintain an increased exponential velocity. And within moments, you're traveling at a very high speed. That's a whole other diagram now that I have to draw out on top of everything I'm still working on. So it's really interesting. Well, I'm still connected to them. And so when I ask a question about drive systems or stellar navigation or planetary bodies, they give me the information that I want because they know I don't hand this stuff over to important people that work within the government. I'm very untrusting of nice people that work for government agencies. Kim Jim told me, that we don't have enough money to maintain a space force. And basically that whole thing about a space force that was originally going to be run by Mark Miley, General Miley got fired, but for his mouth. He released a bunch of information during a cadets meeting at West Point, started talking about hyperdrives, little green men, hybrid armies, things like that. One of the cadets recorded it, released it onto YouTube, and General Miley was quickly removed from his position. We don't know where Mark is now. But there's a lot of untrustworthy people that only think in terms of power and focusing their energy on control. And what I hear from my friends from Taurus is that the concept of power is an illusion, and that anybody that wants to control anything should immediately be avoided, because not only is it a bad thing to try and control aspects of our evolution intellectually and our evolution as a power source, as a country or nation or a planet, but it's really bad to try and control the narrative in which all of us exist together. So I remain as open-minded as possible. I've had some nice people contact me on the email, a nice lady who lives in Nova Scotia. She communicated with me, and I could tell that she was being open and honest about what she was experiencing. And though she was perhaps not as articulate as some people are about their experience, I could tell hers was genuine. And I accept everybody's story. I mean, unless you tell me the planet's name was Mickey Mouse, I'm going to believe you, because my experience was so complex and so exotic and so out of this world that I could barely believe it myself. So if somebody wants to talk about their experience, I'm going to accept their experience. I'm not going to control their narrative. I'm not going to suggest what's right. I want people to ask me questions about why things work the way they work. And then that was another topic that Lowell and I discussed, was how things work. Both Weimer, my deck guide, who sat me in my chair for my trip to Taurus, and Kim Jim told me that the grand unified theory that was begun by Einstein is not the answer. They're close, but they're going about it with a sense of relationships that occur in nuclear sciences. And they're so, when we discovered the bomb, that was it. But they fell down what I describe as a fractal well. Some people call it a rabbit hole. But a fractal well is, a fractal opens up infinitely, and it goes forever. So you can find one of the spirals off on a fractal and follow that down into its 0th point, which would take an infinite amount of time, if you can grasp that. So when we discovered the bomb and the technology behind it, instead of pulling back and looking at the big picture of what's available through nuclear sciences, we just continued down that direction. And of course, all the different sciences that spring from radiation revealed themselves, and they're still following that same fractal well down into the black hole of that type of science. So until mainstream science and university educators are able to pull themselves out of that understanding of that type of subatomic particle science, then they won't be able to grasp or begin the new types of science that are required. Because when they started discussing what was wrong with the grand unified theory, they started telling me about the 4 aspects of reality. And the 4 aspects of reality are not the same as the grand unified theory. Now, I know some of us have heard of dark matter. Well, there's no such thing. And to this date, there has not been one abstract that has been approved by anybody from the AGU or the American Physics Society or Heidelberg or Cambridge. There has not been one physics abstract put forward that proves empirically the existence of dark matter. But they're trying to get as much money as they can from government agencies so that they can continue on with that theme. But there's nothing there. Dark matter doesn't exist, but yet they talk about it like it's something that's real, hoping that eventually the 40 or 50 trillion dollars that's been spent on the understanding of what dark matter is, they hope it actually reveals itself. But unfortunately, these tax dollars have been seized illegally from human beings on the planet to be spent on something that's just a bogus hoax. So there is no dark matter. There are specific types of unions that occur between exotic particles, chime quarks, up quarks, down quarks, bosons, mesons, leptons. These are quantum particles of the smallest nature that have a undescribable behavior because we cannot observe them. We know that the Fermi paradox and the Heisenberg uncertainty principle prove that if we stare or try and observe a subatomic particle, we're going to be dismayed because just the act of observation changes the nature of the particle and the nature of the particle's pathway. So when we're able to understand the different types of sciences that exist from the different particles that are in existence in the universe, we won't be able to pull ourselves out of this fractal well of radioactive sciences, nuclear sciences. Just give me 2 seconds. I blow my nose. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Sorry about that, guys. It's hay fever.
It happens. I've seen your garden.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's got lots of glorious plants, and unfortunately, when you pull weeds for 2 hours, it's like, oh. So rather than the gifts that they gave me in physics being wasted on the grand unified theory, they asked that I approach reality in a different way. And so then I described to Lowell and I showed him some diagrams of time, light, gravity, and sound, the four main aspects of reality, is what my friends from Taurus and the scientists that I spoke to refer to reality as. Reality has four main aspects: time, light, gravity, and sound. They are all interdependent upon each other for existence, and not one of those things can be removed without the whole field collapsing. Weimer said to me, because they can't, I mean, they could have given me all of the clues, but he said to me that we're not ready to understand the relationship between time, light, gravity, and sound. How, in many respects, time, light, gravity, and sound are all made of the same thing, yet are distinctly, they behave differently. Time, light, gravity, and sound are bound by a special form or a special web, like millions of tubes that are woven in a beautiful symmetry that connect those four aspects of time, light, gravity, and sound. It's what's in between that allows them to work in unison, yet binds them together. Weimer very carefully showed me his hand just like this and said, it's this that you must understand. Not time, not light, not gravity, not sound. It's nice to know some things about it, how the nature of those things work. And indeed, human beings truly are very close to understanding everything there is to know about light. And certainly there's a lot of stuff going on at Skunk Works as far as, you know, undercover black ops gravity studies, because we have ships. But Weimer said it's that which is in between of the four main aspects of reality that you must study. It isn't time, light, gravity, and sound. And then he explained very carefully that everything that we know about physics and quantum physics on Earth is Terran. It's Terran physics. And because of the exotic nature of deep stellar space and other aspects of the universe, that once you get, let's say, 300 million light years away to Andromeda, let's say we travel to Andromeda, and let's say that we can get there in a month or in a week, or perhaps 2 days. He said that physics is different. He says that outer space is different. He said that once you're in deep space, your human mind evolves much more greatly than it does. He says the evolution of your human brain is affected by gravity, time, light, and sound. And he said if you were removed and taken out to the space of Andromeda and allowed to exist out there for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years, he said your brain would actually start to change. Your skeletal system would start to change. Everything changes. He said that because what you understand about gravity, you understand how gravity works on the Earth and how it works in your solar system, and perhaps, you know, the local group like Kepler 9 outside the Oort cloud and the Kuiper belt. There's some local planetary bodies that are not that far away, 2,000 light years away, where gravity and electromagnetism are probably very similar to what they are on Earth. But once you get 75 light years or 75 million light years away, all those things change. He says gravity isn't the way it is here on Earth. And he says, you know, you guys think that neutrinos, which are the center of a collapsed star, are the densest items in the universe, the most highly dense, highly compressed item. A neutrino is the size of an atom, yet it weighs as much as all the planets in our solar system. And it drops. And see, scientists in America, scientists in Britain or Japan or France or Africa, they all think that a neutrino is unaffected by gravity because it is so heavy that it goes in one direction only. And so it's unaffected by gravity. Well, we have places on the Earth in Japan and other listening stations that are deep, deep, deep underground, where there's this really pure water and these big gold domes that sit under the water, and they're absolutely still. And every once in a while, a neutrino will strike one of those gold domes or pass through the water. And because it's so still, Earth scientists will be able to record the passage of a neutrino. And they say that many neutrinos pass through us throughout our lives. We never notice them because they're infinitesimal, they're subatomic. So they can go right through your head and right through your feet, and it won't affect you because it's so tiny, it doesn't leave a wound. Okay. So what Weimer told me is that there are places in space where neutrinos travel this way, and that gravitation goes that way. And he said that time changes, gravity changes, electromagnetism changes, because as a human, we'll never really understand the nature of the universe and its size. And he says that's when you have to stop trying to control the narrative. Open your mind to every possibility about science in order to accept new forms of science. Because when we travel in space, we're sort of in the center of a sphere. When we get past the terrestrial knowledge base of physics, of gravitation and electromagnetism, then we are actually receiving space and the things that space throws at us from every direction. And so we have to be able to be evolved enough to have the luxury to work on a new form of physics that allows us to compensate for these new forms of exotic physics and gravitation that come towards us. Otherwise, we'll succumb to that environment and we'll fail in our mission. This is where telemetry comes in, and different types of stellar navigation and different types of exotic propulsion. This is where the Orlon is so important. You have to reach a specific speed before the Orlon develops. So there are many things that mankind has to approach differently, and many things that we have to go through first when we are deciding to travel outside of our solar system. So it's not that big a deal going to Mars, and it's not that big a deal sending a satellite. And there's going to be tons of physicists going, Dave Wallace is an idiot. It's a huge deal to send a satellite. No, it's not, guys. It's a huge deal to create an interstellar conveyance and then fly that near light speed and then beyond light speed by connecting space and then releasing it, or traveling in Alcubierre's warp bubble and traveling beyond the speed of light. And yeah, it's possible. But because the scientists and the established mainstream science community will not allow you to have that science fantasy, they're going to tell you exactly what they've been able to achieve is the limit of what mankind can achieve. And so remember that everything's here. So when you control the narrative, you put like braces on your brain, and it keeps you from wondering the beautiful things that exist and accepting those beautiful things. And I was taken on such a magnificent trip where I was shown perhaps a small aspect to them, but was a groundbreaking universal engagement for me. My mind was opened up like a flower, and they just kept dumping information in about the universe and how the nature of things work, how to release our egos and accept everything that occurs and be a happy person. And, they gave me my soul back, and I'm a successful person emotionally because of my experience. Everything that I have, I built with my own hands, but everything I have emotionally and intellectually is not a culmination of my childhood and my upbringing. It's a rearrangement of what I was given or started with, and then they cleansed me and healed me. This person that emailed me says, I don't believe anybody's healed. And I said, well, okay, I do. I believe that there are healed people, and there are many of them walking around the planet trying to help other people heal. But I'm not a healer. I'm a translator. So I'll translate information about what's happened, or perhaps I'll help you understand the technology behind an interstellar conveyance if it's come and flash lights at you. And I can teach you how that attenuates in your mind so that you can start to understand the development of this light language. And light language is something that all of us know about now. We speak in light languages, we communicate in light languages, and mankind has been depicting flashing lights and vortexes on rocks 150,000 years ago. So light language is a genetic gift that we carry with us. And really, it wasn't much for them to sort of open that key for me to make me able to understand what they're saying. So Lowell and I talked about the four aspects of reality. And then what Lowell and I would like to do is allow me to do some segments. One of them will be perhaps about the trip and the technology. And then the next one will be about the science that I learned from them, how we were able to travel, and show you guys some of the physics equations. And you could just screenshot them and take them home and go look them up. Or if you're in physics or if you're a physicist, you can take them to your friends and you can either go, wow, that's weird, or laugh your ass off because, I don't care. I've taken the work that they've given me in different parts to some very important people in the university complex and in aerospace, and shared small aspects of some of the technology they've given me. And right down the middle, 50% of them were in awe and went, what? This is really something else, Dave. You're onto something. This is amazing. I've never seen this before. When are you going to release more information about it? And then the other half just went, oh, it's very, very pretty, but I don't care. You see, people that criticize you for your own thought processes and the knowledges that you bring forward are the very same people who are very unhappy, who have had their spirit crushed. And if, you don't want to spend time with those people because damage is done, unless you're a healer and you want to go back and heal those people. I'm not a healer, so I don't really feel any sympathy for people like that. We're just going to leave them behind and go forward. But I have to tell you, I love everybody, even if you're a mess. And there's some scientists out there that are a mess. I still, love you and forgive you. I don't care what mainstream science says about me. And, I like a lot of the crazy science, wacky stuff that's out there. And I'm not going to name names, but there's some really weird stuff that disregards, common sense in science that's being allowed to be produced. And you just have to take it with a grain of salt. So I'm happy to fall under the category of pseudoscience. This could be, Data Dump Dave's pseudoscience hour, where, I talk about pseudoscience because I'm not really bothered about producing an abstract that's going to be approved by a governing body. These are the same people that approve stealing money from taxpayers to build, torture devices for animals and build nuclear bombs to kill children. So, why would I go to those people for any kind of support or emotional maintenance or pat on the back, right?
Yeah.
So what Lowell and I would like to do is I'll bring my studies forward. It'll be in a different environment. I won't be sitting in a t-shirt. I'll be standing in front of a big chalkboard, and we'll be writing out some things, and I'll be presenting some information, and there'll be some photographs of the inside of interstellar conveyance, and there'll be some photographs of the outside of interstellar conveyance, and we'll talk about some of the drive systems that they use. I have photographs of some of the drive system components that they use that are while they're being used. And you guys can sit back and go, Jesus, this is the only guy on the planet that's releasing these photographs. And you're going to find it on Lowell's channel. I gave everybody else an opportunity. I'm not going to name names, but they haven't called me back. And if you think this is hocus pocus, fine. But don't let anyone control the narrative. Accept all the information that you receive and then put the pieces together for yourself. This is the only way that as individuals we'll find the truth. I've been told very carefully that they will take away all the gifts that they've given me if I turn this into a situation where I'm trying to control or bullshit people. And so I'm not going to do either one of those because I have no idea what the wrath is. It's like the wrath of God, okay? I don't want them coming back into my head and taking everything that they gave me. Because, oh my gosh, Lowell, I have so many wonderful devices, and, you saw a lot of the stuff that I was drawing in the equations and the spaceship pictures and everything. I mean, they've given me aspects of designing interstellar conveyance. They're teaching me right now how to build the shielding on a ship to protect us from a radioactive, dangerous environment in outer space. They're giving me the keys for shielding. They already handed me the keys for the Interstellar Conveyance Navigation Program. They gave me all of it. I've got all the diagrams, all the tools, how to begin the process, and how to do the Boolean Cartesian program to upload these three-dimensional crystal maps into the computer so that while you're going, 10 million miles a second, that your ship will know which direction to take to avoid all these pitfalls in deep stellar space. That's how they do it. Prescriptive telemetry. They know hundreds of thousands of light years in advance what systems are ahead of their ship going 10 million miles a second. And if you don't like that, if that doesn't jive with you, go find a channel where you're sitting with some physicist who thinks the world is crummy, because they're giving us all these gifts, guys. Open up your mind and let it come in and let it flow, because there's nothing that you can imagine that they haven't already turned into some form of technology. They have freed their intellect because they have free spirits. They freed their mind so that when they think of something, they actually make it. And they go, oh, look, it works. So don't be afraid of new technology and new ideas. I'm telling you guys, just about everything that you see on Star Trek is real. Transporters, phasers, the language that they use, right?
It was inspired from somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
Let me stop you for just a second. I just
I'm
want to
pretty much done,
underscore
except
a
that
few
this
things.
is what you and I are going to be doing. So
Right.
go ahead, take
When
over.
I heard Dave, now you know why it took 2 days for Dave to explain the things he explained to me. And by nature, math has always been simple and physics is understandable to me. Those kind of illustrations for me to figure out, things in a cubic form, that was always simple. So when Dave started to describe these things to me, they resonated with me. I get it. Then he showed me these illustrations and he showed me formulas that had been given to him. And again, it all resonated with me. And when he described how he received it, there was a method to all this. Because first of all, they had to put Dave in a place where he had the capacity to understand all of this data that they were about to dump into him. So that was a process that he had to go through. Once that was established, now he's in a place where that vessel that he's just become is pure enough to take this information and start to put it into terms that he can understand. And then he'll be in a position to explain it to others. When I heard it, and when I saw the illustrations to support it, it blew me away. And it was just a matter of whether Dave was going to be willing to share it with people and in what way he wished to do that. I know where his heart is, and I know what he wants to do to share this. When he talks about exotic technologies, we've been having that conversation with our inner Earth friends for a little while now about what they intend to share with us. Humanity was, fragile there for a while. We've been manipulated along the way. To make a long story short, we're stepping into a zone right now where all that is yesterday's news. We're about to step into improvements in the physical form that we're going to be in here. Our soul moves to the next level, and New Earth is right around the corner. That, in my mind, is the reason why all of this information is starting to be revealed to us, and in bits and pieces. It's not that what Dave understands, he's going to teach the rest of us. There are only going to be a handful of people that are even going to get it. So trying to teach others is ridiculous. My point is, Dave understands it and just articulated a minute ago. He knows he's connected to everybody else. So we don't have to worry about Dave teaching everybody else. We have Dave. We have his consciousness taking care of that part of what the tribe is, supposed to do. And when people embrace that idea that we're all different and we all got a different gift, that we are right now in a position to understand and master, we got to get out of this 3D, just stuck in my head with what it's been conditioned with. And as Dave illustrated so wonderfully, once we can get beyond that The imagination is where uh, we get to create a lot of that inspiration. And so when we think about things that we thought of as a kid and that was so pure and wonderful, when we get back to this point now, it's not that ridiculous. And for goodness sakes, we're given that vision for a reason. So they're about to restore whatever abilities we previously had, because we're no longer going to exist in this density. I think it's really important for us, and I'm honored in a way that Dave, is going to share this information with me here.
Thank you.
I know why it all happened now, and it was supposed to happen here. But I just want to step back and let Dave just be Dave, because as you heard, there's a lot of detail to understanding what Dave just gave us in the last, 30 minutes or so. A lot. But he is interested in helping you understand it, not to understand all of the physics and how this propulsion system will actually work. And when he gets to a hyperdrive and explains how that's going to function, and he builds it for us, that's another conversation coming somewhere else. But people need something to believe. They've only believed what we've been fed, and by these organizations that have been funded for purposes and agendas of their own. We finally have somebody who understands it to degrees beyond that. And all I get to do is offer you an opportunity to hear this guy and listen, and let you tell me whether you resonate with what Dave is saying. Because there's no way in my mind, listening to him now, that Dave could have rehearsed any of this to be ready to spew it the way that it comes out. It's just a flow, which tells me authentically Dave is in command of this information. And I just let him go because I know where it's going to go. I just trust that's how I got where I am. And that's how Dave got where he is. Now, we should be examples for the rest of you, that when you open yourself up to things that are beyond your comprehension and your experience, this is what you're about to be shown. And there's a reason for that too. And you all know how I feel about the shift, so we won't go there.
Right, man.
So you want to wrap?
Absolutely. I'm hoping that everybody in your community tunes into this program that you and I are going to share. I mean, if we do this, maybe started in 3 weeks or 4 weeks, that'll give people enough time to sort of set that time aside to watch, because you won't want to miss this. Because
Agreed.
I'll be showing pictures of beings from other worlds, photographs of them in my home, standing right in front of my camera. Okay. So this is not the kind of thing that you want to go, oh, there's some blah, blah, blah. Just watch, draw your own conclusions. Whatever thoughts and whatever intellectual fantasy that you're capable of, believe in those things within yourself, because the system that this reality provides is trying to crush those thoughts and crush those feelings as hard as they can, so that you supply your finances and your energy to the paradigm that they're providing. And we know that this is a false reality. Trust in your instincts, listen only to your inner voice. And when you truly just listen to your inner voice, then you hear the song of the sky, then you hear the heartbeat of Gaia. When you trust in only your instincts and your inner voice, because your inner voice isn't going to be any different than mine or Lowell's or anybody else who loves life and all creatures. That's how we're all connected, from our hearts. And they opened me up and allowed me to connect to those beautiful gifts that I was given on the day I was born. And it helped me shed the horrible heavy cloak, the lead blanket of attrition and hatred that's being produced by the filthy creatures that are trying to control everybody's narrative and turn it into something negative. Don't think about them anymore. We know they exist. Let them go. Tune into this program. What I'm really interested in also is that because of these aspects of ship design that they've given me, I'm going to put it out there to all of you guys. If you guys know somebody that has some money that wants to build a ship, I can help you with anti-radiation shielding, the whole of the ship, I can help you with certain aspects of the magnetic drive or the gravitational drive, and I can certainly fulfill all of the requirements for the stellar cartography and navigation program. I have people that can design computers that work for space agencies that will do this on the side. And it's compartmentalized, and they're very sweet scientists. They're all interesting people between the age of pardon me, 22 to 45. And they're all very interested in joining them. So if there's a group of people out there that want to get the investments together to actually build a ship, put the word out there. This isn't a fantasy. Why are you waiting for Elon Musk to build another rocket? Why are you waiting for NASA to, let's get together? I mean, is this a GoFundMe moment? This could be something where everybody connects to everybody else, because once the series starts and I start releasing this information, this is for all of you guys. Now, I might share some of the keys of communication, because we will be talking about CLPT and CLPF, continuous light pulse frequencies and continuous light pulse transmissions. This is how they speak to us, through light language, through light packages. And they're able to anneal many thousands of pieces of information to one photon.
Yeah, I want you to dedicate one of your sessions to
I have to.
about that very thing.
I have to. And this is interesting. I was talking to a young man from NASA who is in charge of the radio telemetry for the little rovers that are on Mars. He's in charge. And he's a nice guy. He's in his 40s, and he's really brilliant. But I started talking to him about a different light language, and he immediately he was fascinated, but then something came over him where he just sort of shut down, because he's in that programming, that centrical force of programming, where all of the scientists that you think you need to contact to build an interstellar conveyance to fly outside of our solar system within moments, they're all under a programming situation where they get afraid, and they have a good job. They make $200,000 a year, and they're paying their mortgage on time, and there's plenty of food in the refrigerator, and they got to watch the Sunday night football, and their wife makes them hors d'oeuvres and cocktails, and all their friends come over because they have a good job and they work for the system. Why should they throw all that away? Well, because that's a false reality and a false paradigm. Those aren't the things that you need to be a successful human being. So really, these off-world technologies and the aspects that bring that technology to humanity require you to understand what life is fundamentally, and to understand how to live your life as a free soul while you're leaving this paradigm and going into the fourth. And until you're able to accept that you're a free, loving spirit who can do anything, be anything, and go anywhere you want, then perhaps it may be difficult for you to understand or hear some of the things that I'll be releasing. But there'll be plenty of photographs, and I know that you folks like photographs of ships and you want to see pictures of extraterrestrials. Remember that I call them BES, B-E-S, Beyond Earth Sentience. And it's sort of a phrase I've coined out of the need to respect them, because they're not aliens and they're not exoskeletal xenomorphs that want to chomp a piece of your skull out. And it's offensive to them that human beings can't open their minds enough to see them as gentle, sweet, sentient beings that they are. Many of them are very fragile and very frail because of the nature of where they live in deep space, and their bodies have changed. They have very crystalline bones, very elongated limbs, and they're very weak. They have very large, thin craniums, but they house a magnificent brain. These species that have been able to survive the need to destroy themselves and to turn their planets, animals into handbags, they've got to a point now where they just love doing what they do. They live in space, they go from planet to planet, and they spend their whole civilization's time researching and communicating and sharing. And it's a big universe of sharing and loving, guys. This isn't some, it's not what you're being told. And you can all join them, and you can all have your own trip, and you can all have your own experience if you allow yourself the belief. When you sit there quietly and you look out into outer space and you just concentrate on that one patch of sky at night, eventually a ship will show up in that one patch, and it'll turn and it'll blink at you. And those blinking lights are actually embedding information for you to come out and meet them the next time you're there. Just keep this clear. Keep your heart full of love. Let go of all the terrestrial value systems of food, sex, and money. Clear your minds. Meditate on love. Meditate on happiness. And remember that Lowell and I love you guys very much. And we want everybody to come to the same level, come to the same conclusion that everything will be okay because we have each other. And there's nothing that we can't do together as a family, you guys. So it's not a fantasy, me wanting to build a interstellar conveyance. I have some of the technology, and I have a sneaking suspicion that there's some of you out there that have been communicated to that are ready to meet somebody like me, because you also have an aspect of development, whether that's landing gear or the type of window design, or perhaps you know something about specialist components or specialist composition, whether that's metallics, minerals, metals, glass, silica, quartzite. I have a feeling there's some people out there that have already been spoken to by them. And please don't be afraid. Bring your information forward. We should all be communicating with each other and taking that next step. Wouldn't it be a fine thing in 15 years to complete a giant flying saucer and all of us take off right in front of everybody? Say, see ya, we're going to go hang out with our friends. Because as soon as you initiate that and that ship takes off, they'll be waiting to see you up in the solar system, believe me.
Yeah, my thought is it won't take that
there.
long.
No.
I'm just saying.
Just take it from there.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be great. So we're not far off from that, Lowell.
No, you know, here's maybe a good place to just, we'll pull this to a close, but I want to tack on, when Dave and I were talking over the last few days, the phrase that they can't stop us from having multidimensional experiences came up again. And while I was in Shasta, I talked to Dave, really the only guy that I could talk to about this phenomenon. And I'm not going to go into detail here, but I will in the next whatever feature we do. But it has to do with what should have been a 30-minute hike up to Faery Falls. When I ended up patching all the videos together, it was nearly 3 hours long. We'll leave it at that. So yes, I somehow stepped into a vortex and my camera caught it. So look forward to that diagnosis and that discussion. And so yeah, Dave and I will have plenty of things that we want to share because we're beginning to experience them again. And that's just it. I don't know how to put this delicately, so I'm just going to put this out there. When you get to hear from Dave and I, you get to hear from people that are having experiences, not somebody telling you about somebody else having the experiences.
Right.
And, I don't care to draw, millions to me. That's not it. I'm drawing the rest of the tribe here that understands that all of this is happening for a reason and that we're all here to assist ourselves through the process. The rest of it, this hasn't hit mainstream yet. Not quite sure why it hasn't yet, but it's about to. And then we'll see where the shit really hits the fan when we have to defend this from, people that don't get it. Well, we don't care. We've already pushed way past that. Right. And that's how we got to this stage. We didn't dwell on what we thought our limitations were. Every time we got to see something a little more extraordinary, we took it for what it was. Now, it might have taken us a few days to figure out what that was. But nonetheless, it was extraordinary. And the things like Dave, the downloads he's been discussing, and the results of what he can share with us now are, indisputable. There are a few of us that are having these things, and right now, it's like anything else we get to see from them. Once we get used to this extraordinary level of stuff, it's just getting you ready for the next level of what it wishes to show you. So it's all going to be of value to us for some reason. Stay tuned. So do you want to close with something, my buddy?
Just that it's so important to keep a loving heart and an open mind. And I understand now what you mean by mainstream being like more views, because Lowell and I, we support each other, and we're not out there for dough. This isn't about money. This is about, we understand that there's a finite amount of time left in our lives, and that Lowell and I have a very deep feeling and a very deep understanding that as men and human beings at this time that we all live, that it's very important for us to be as straightforward and as honest and to be as kind as possible, because this is also the altruistic nature of being an ambassador. When they asked us to do this job, it was knowing that we would lose all of our other friends, all of our other jobs, all of our other relationships, because a lot of folks still aren't ready. So really great to see you guys, and I love you, Lowell. This has been a nice catch up, and I look forward to you advertising the processes that we're going to discuss, and hopefully we can start that in 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, I will probably have this one up later today. And then we'll begin to promote what dates we have in mind sometime next week, when we describe, whatever those logistics needs to be. But yeah, look for the first one to be, let's say 4 weeks out. So that'll make sense. All right, buddy. Thank you as always for your time. My best to your son, William. I love you both, and talk to you soon.
We love you too. Thanks for the opportunity to see you and to speak to all of your wonderful friends and your subscribers.
Thanks.
Bye.